All right, well, buckle up, baby, because we're about to do a little tour. What? It's tour time. Let's do it. Here, look at that. There's me. Oh, look, I used to be a tour guide. That's me right there. Oh, that was me too. Look at that. How cool is that? Oh, look, that's me. It's fun for the whole family. And we're all going to die one day, and dabbing rat. All right, cool. Here we go, guys. Let's do this. Today, we are going to cover the amazing neighborhood of Chinatown, baby. Woo, Lord. What do you know about Chinatown? You're about to learn a lot more. It's an amazing place with a ton of culture and diversity, and the place rocks, baby. Look at that guy playing over there in the park. It was super fun that day. That's my friend Yem. I met them here in the park. Guys, here's the deal. I'm gonna go through the history right from the beginning. All right, so here we go. First of all, that is not the only Chinatown in New York. That one we're talking about here. There's about 5 of them. Depending on what you call a town, it might be considered more. There's 2 in Queens, 2 in Brooklyn. This happens to be the one in Manhattan, and happens to be the oldest one. So keep that in mind going forward. Now, there used to be this giant area here in Lower Manhattan known as the Collect Pond. It was a giant pond that they drained. They drained this pond. It was like 50-something acres. It had a little island in the middle of it, and they drained it using the canal down Canal Street. Ah, you're like, Canal Street, what'd they do? Empty it out with like counterfeit Louis Vuitton bags? No, there was actually a river there, like a little canal that they used, and it's actually been paved over since. And guess what they did? They tried to develop like a whole little neighborhood there. Problem was, it was filling in from underground, and it turned into muck. No one lived there, and it became a dump. It became squalor. Now, at that time, in the early 1800s, when this was happening, the Irish were coming into New York City, and then they started coming in even greater numbers in the mid-1800s, and they made their home here. And now, you guys might know about the potato famine. That was one of the reasons why they came here, and it was a real problem, right? So imagine, like, the main food in the country of Ireland, especially for the lower classes, becoming tainted and basically causing starvation and huge problems. That'd be like if here in the United States tomorrow there was a fungus strain found in, Hamburger Helper or something. I don't know. Anyways, this neighborhood was trouble, man. Had horrible things like, hogs running wild. It had cholera epidemics. I mean, who knows? It probably had a Shake Shack at somewhere, Anyways, it's a place known as the 5 Points because of this intersection right here where today you have the park, right? There were 5 little streets coming in here creating 5 points, and that's why it's called the 5 Points, right? You can see this little, if you go down there now, they have this little commemorative little thing there. Pretty cool. You guys may know it from the movie Gangs of New York. Huh? You guys know the movie Gangs of New York? Pretty cool. But it was a really terrible place, and there was poverty there throughout the 19th century. Poverty there, like Gangs of New York, lasted for way too long. Went way too long. Movie could have been a little shorter. Anyways, here we go. Now, as it was a really terrible place, 3 times the infant mortality rate, really awful. Like for 100 years, it was really this terrible place. Movements sprang up, right? You had things like the Bowery Mission popping up in the mid-1800s to try to alleviate this. You had things like the Henry Street Settlement in the late 1800s starting up. And you had cool things like this. This is a picture of one of the nurses from the Henry Street Settlement jumping from building to building to go visit some of the poor in those neighborhoods. Pretty cool, right? Huh? Look at that. Nurses doing parkour? Yes, please. It's pretty cool. All right, let's keep it moving, all right? Here we go. So you have other movements like this man who's Jacob Riis. You guys know Jacob Riis. Anyways, he was a Danish immigrant. He came here, and he actually started to tour around the neighborhood and took pictures. For the first time, people from outside of the neighborhood, even though some people paid police officers to take them there and show them around because they were too scared to walk by themselves, he was giving people a glimpse into this mysterious neighborhood by using flash photography. It was crazy. That was like a real innovation. All these people were horrified seeing what was happening in front of them, but he took their picture and sent it out to the rest of the world, right? So this also helped getting the ball rolling to change the neighborhood. The cameras were crazy looking. Like this is actually what it looked like right here. So anyways, let's keep it moving. Here we go. So in that area, once it starts getting changed, they replace it with different things to try to beautify the area, uplift it, etc. And one of the things they did was they put a park where the worst of it was. Paradise Square, all that area that you see in the movie where he hung the rabbit and stuff, where good old Leo, that dreamboat, hello, he hung that rabbit over there. That was actually replaced by Columbus Park. Initially, it was called Mulberry Bend Park, but it was renamed Columbus Park because it was in Little Italy in the early 1900s. But we'll get to that. Anyways, it is a beautiful park. You should go check it out. You can go see people playing instruments. You can see people playing their games. Actually, interesting fact: one of the games you can see playing actually is, I'm going to butcher this, Xiangqi. I'm sorry, I feel like that's like a hate crime. Me pronouncing that is really terrible. But it's actually Chinese chess. It's a really amazing game, and you can see people playing that. The big groups usually congregate, and they used to congregate even more because they were gambling, unfortunately. And gambling's illegal in New York. I don't know if you guys knew that, especially when you're doing it next to the main criminal courthouse in the entire city. So it got shut down, unfortunately. But we'll get to all of that. Here we go. Let's keep it moving. So Little Italy started to grow in the early 1900s. Mulberry, which is what Mulberry Bend Park is located on, actually goes right across canal into what is still today Little Italy. And that's why it was renamed Columbus Park, because in case if you've ever talked to any Italian, you know that Columbus was Italian. So that's why they renamed it that. Anyways, so around the early 1900s, New York City is also starting to explode, which is one of the reasons why you have this here. This is the Manhattan Bridge. This was finished in 1909 because Brooklyn was exploding at the time. And in the design of it is known as Beaux-Arts. 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 Architecture. You guys know, anyone here speak French? Sorry. Sorry about that. Beaux-Arts. Beaux-Arts. Anyways, it went up all over the city in the early 1900s because New York was like, we finally arrived, baby. We're just as important as any of these European capitals. Give us that Beaux-Arts stuff. Come on. So it went up all over, including this entrance to the Manhattan Bridge, including the New York Public Library, Grand Central Terminal, Alexander Hamilton Customs House, the Washington Arch, etc. Let's keep it moving. All right. So I thought you said Chinatown, Tom. What are we doing? You're talking about Italians, all this stuff. We came here to listen to Chinatown. All right. Well, here you go. So the Chinatown in this area there were Chinese presence there. There was a Chinese presence there, but it was only in like the few hundreds up until even the end of the 1800s. Now, the Chinese immigration really took off in the United States. It came in waves. The first wave, they say, was during the gold rush in the mid-1800s. The second coming with the building of the railroads, right? So the Transcontinental Railroad being one of the major projects. You guys know that. And also, they came here partly because of the experience of the racism out west. The racism out west was even worse, believe it or not, than it was here. So a lot of people came to what was then the 5 Points and kind of became a little enclave within the 5 Points at the time. It didn't explode till later on, and we will get to that. All right, so a big part of all this was anti-Asian sentiment. Now, this is an actual picture from an actual magazine back then. Pretty terrible. This is a stereotype. You would see the people with the Fu Manchus and with the braids and all this. This was obviously anti-Asian. The problem was this anti-Asian sentiment crept into people who even supported Asian rights. So this actually here is a drawing by a man named Thomas Nast. If you know who Thomas Nast is, he was the guy who drew pictures of William Boss Tweed and helped bring him down. And he was actually partly responsible for our conception of Santa Claus. He's the guy who drew Santa Claus with the big white beard, fat belly, all that stuff. That was kind of him. He was a very famous cartoonist, and this is supposed to be supporting Asian rights. But look at it, in the process, he's drawing a stereotype, and even that, look at that. That's supposed to be an Irish guy who's basically dressed and made like to look like a monkey, an ape. So this guy wasn't any better, really, if you think about it. Now, this paved the way for something you guys may not know, and if you don't know it, holy crap. In 1882, there was a law passed in the United States called the Chinese Exclusion Act. This is the first and only ethnically specific exclusion act ever passed in the United States. Crazy, right? Germany, that's nuts, right? You guys, what? You can't imagine something like that? Anyways, so this was here, and it was passed in 1882. 1882, that's a crazy thing. Like, what's your name, sir? Tim? Imagine if tomorrow we pass a law called the Tim Exclusion Act. And all Tims, you had to get the hell out of here. How would that make you feel? Right answer. Nice work. Okay. You see how I demonstrated that right there? Just like that. All right, let's keep it moving. So the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed in 1882, guys. So this is a big deal. And this is one of the reasons why Chinatown was kept down the way it was. It wasn't exploding the way it is today. Now, we'll get to where it changed, okay? So one of the things that this anti-Asian sentiment did was it forced the Asians who were here, the Chinese specifically, to find ways to survive. Now, they were excluded from certain types of jobs. A lot of the immigrants even discriminated against them. They had a tough time finding work. So one of the things they did was they began to do what were called hand laundries. They began to wash clothes. They began to do this job that no one really wanted to do that was associated with filth. So today, you may know the stereotype now, but that's based in this reality of them trying to find work when they were here. Another thing they did was they opened restaurants. They opened restaurants all over because they obviously aren't going to find any competition for Chinese restaurants, so they went up all over the United States. And how's this for a fact? Here's a little factoid. What's the most American restaurant you could think of? McDonald's. For every McDonald's in the United States, there are 3 Chinese restaurants. Yeah. So if you ever ask, what's American cuisine? Chinese is American cuisine. Wrap your head around that. All right, let's keep it moving. So anyways, this Chinese Exclusionist Act is in effect. Then in 1924, you have another act passed. So this basically was quotas that were passed. This law was passed in 1924, putting quotas on all immigrants, basically halting immigration essentially in the United States. This was every Republican's wet dream. I'm sure Ron DeSantis grew up with, like, instead of a Farrah Fawcett poster, he had a copy of this on his. Anyways, this was a real law, 1924, man. Now, after World War II, the United States was on better terms with China, so they lifted and rolled back a little bit of those anti-Chinese laws because it would have been kind of embarrassing to have allied with them and keep them out. And I'm not going to get too much into World War II because there's way too much to talk about. So, if you want to know more about World War II, ask any middle-aged white man, and they'll tell you all about it. Okay, so another thing that happened was in 1965, you had the Hart-Celler Act passed. This is Lyndon B. Johnson signing it at the base of the Statue of Liberty, and this basically went back and took away the quotas and also opened up the gates to the groups that were traditionally excluded, including the Asian, including the Latin Americans, etc. And you know that American policy on immigration is a good thing because they signed the law at the Statue of Liberty. Wow, yeah, okay, well, all right. Anyways, moving on. So they start coming in around this time, the 1960s, and they start kind of picking up, etc. And they settle around where it was, their little enclave was in what was then the 5 Points, which we know today. So for example, this here is the Church of Transfiguration. One of the oldest church buildings in Manhattan. It was originally a Lutheran church, then an Episcopal in the mid-1800s. It turned into a Catholic church to cater to the Irish, etc. It's still there. It's still Catholic. But you know how it did it? It turned to converting. It started converting people, and it's actually been successful, and it's now the largest Chinese Catholic congregation in the United States. Look at that, kind of crazy. So those kind of things survive that way, and it continues on in this area, right? So there are still some traces of old Chinatown. You can see Wing on Woe, which is actually the oldest business in the late, I believe it's 1880s, was open there. It's a I think 5th generation now of ownership. It's a little general store there. You have Nam Hua Tea Parlor. Just look for the line that looks like they're, giving away Taylor Swift tickets or something. It's kind of insane. I don't know why that is the case, but that's right there on Doyer Street there. Now, it's interesting because people don't realize that the immigration has continued on from this time, and it's gone up and down. There's obviously illegal, there's also legal, but people want to get here, and it's kind of difficult. The avenues are limited, as you may know from the news, etc. So people, they take their lives in their own hands just to come here. One of the disasters you may not have heard of, this is called the Golden Venture. The Golden Venture in 1993, a ship carrying 236 Chinese immigrants ran aground right off the coast of Fort Tilden, over there on basically the Rockaway Peninsula there. And people were diving into the water to swim to shore. 10 people died and just drowned. People were just watching it happen from the beach. Now, it's kind of wild that something like this would happen, and one of the people responsible was actually in the 2000s went to prison for it. Her name was Sister Ping. This woman was like, they just recently wrote a book about her called The Snakehead. A snakehead was a person who basically organized these things, and sometimes people would pay up to $40,000 to come here, to get an ability to come here and get smuggled in. And you're thinking, how could you afford that? Well, a lot of times they couldn't afford that, and they had to basically pay it off once they got here. So they were basically held in captivity until they paid it off, which is kind of wild. This woman's story reads like a movie. $40,000 too, by the way. That's a ton of money. For $40,000, you could fly a round trip to California in Comfort Plus and have 3 check bags. You really do. So that's a lot of money. And also, this is kind of crazy. This movie, you could make a movie about a woman like this. She's had a really, really crazy life story and all that. I'm not going to get too far into that. But, knowing Hollywood the way it casts movies, they'd probably give the part to Anne Hathaway. I don't know. But let's keep moving. All right, so what's happening today? Today, Chinatown is under a lot of pressure. It's under a lot of pressure because there's real estate, baby. Real estate is flying up, man. It's getting expensive in New York, and so there's more pressure here in Chinatown to sell, etc. So there has been different things proposed, rezonings, all that stuff, and it's resulted in some, in some developments like this one. I don't know if you guys have seen this building here on the Manhattan Bridge. That is 1 Manhattan Square. It's got a bowling alley, a basketball court. The prices range from like 1.5 million to over 5 million, etc. The place has a frickin' tree house. That's the tree house. They have a friggin' tree house. Look, all ethnicity and all immigration laws aside, if you're shopping for a place and you decide on a luxury condo based on a tree house, you should be deported. I think we can all agree on that. All right, let's keep it moving. Here we go. Yeah, someone hates tree houses. All right. And it's interesting because we're talking about things like anti-Asian sentiment, things that are obvious. You're like, oh yeah, well there's no, you either think there's a racist or there's a non-racist. But a lot of times the problem is sometimes that anti-Asian sentiment, sometimes what's called Orientalism and all those things seeps into what is the liberal dialogue. People who have good intentions don't even realize they're doing these things. And this is something we'll talk about a little later in the show, but this is a good example of it. This was an art piece, an art installation that was, I believe 2017. An Israeli artist made this piece here at this is actually a gallery that he turned into what was basically to kind of commemorate the Chinese, a Chinese business. But he purposely made it dingy and run down and made like the chairs like cheap, he made it dirty, he made it all like to basically commemorate the Chinese, but the Chinese were like, what are you doing, man? You're just like basically pointing out the worst parts of what it is to be Chinese and just making us into that. There's so much more to Chinese culture than just a dingy, convenience store, which is wild. I mean, that basically just tapping into all their worst, insecurities and things like that. I'm never gonna hire this guy to make art about me. He's just gonna make a collage about why I'm a failure to my parents. It's like, all right, well, come on. Anyways, we're gonna keep on moving. Here we go. So, why does this matter? This matters because I think Chinatown is obviously, Chinese are one of the biggest ethnic communities in New York City today. It's actually was just recently surpassed as the fastest growing by the Mexican population, but it is one of the biggest. And so how the Chinese are treated and how their community, especially here in Manhattan where they're under so much pressure, is treated is going to have effects on the other communities and also obviously on Manhattan. So it is an important thing we got to keep in mind because we got to remember, man, there's a ton of culture. Any city worth its salt has to be diverse by definition. It's not even a debate. That's the function of a city. You bring in all types of points of view, all types of ideas and thoughts and all this, and then you beam out to the rest of the world the result of it. But if you don't have it diverse, it's going to be a total disaster. So you got to bring in all these rich different cultures and and even participate every now and then. Look at that guy right there. How about that? But yeah, so that's kind of the quick of it. I don't know, I covered it in like 10 minutes there, but that was pretty much the basics, guys. There you go, Chinatown. What do you think of that? Not bad. Whew, man. Sweating up here. Sweating. But yeah, man, Chinatown's the best. You should definitely go check it out. And if you do get a chance, too, I would recommend going out to the Chinatowns in Queens. You can go to Flushing, Queens, down at the end of the 7. You go to Elmhurst. You go to, Sunset Park in Brooklyn there. I mean, it's everywhere. It's great. It's really great. But anyways, that being said, guys, I'm going to keep the show going. How are you guys doing? You guys enjoying yourselves? Yeah?